4 o'clock.
3:59.
I think we're ready to go.
Yes. Call to order the Abilene City Commission regular meeting for May 11th, 2020. Roll call vote.
Mayor Osterman,
Here.
Commissioner Ryan,
Here.
Commissioner Marshall, here, Commissioner Schaefer,
Here.
Commissioner Witt.
Here.
Thank you. Roll call complete.
Thank you. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is the consent agenda, and I would like to make a change to the consent agenda to add number 8, approval of an aerial spray operator agreement with Crop Service. They have met all criteria. So next item is to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, this is Commissioner Ryan. I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, this is Commissioner Marshall. Who is the aerial sprayer that we're adding on?
Crop Services.
Thank you. I will second Commissioner Ryan's motion.
Okay, it has been moved and second to approve the consent agenda with the addition of the approval as number 8, approval of an aerial spray operator agreement with Crop Service. Roll call vote. Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
And myself, Mayor Osterman, yes. Next item would be 8A. The city clerk will update the mayor on any public comments she has received. Public comments must be sent to the city clerk by noon on Monday, May 11th, 2020 at penny@abilenecityhall.com. Penny Soka, you have any?
Yes, this is Penny Sokup, City Clerk, and I have made a spreadsheet and distributed via email to all of you on all of the emails regarding the chickens in city limits. And I did receive a couple of phone calls, and I just added their name and their vote onto the list. No other comments have been received besides those.
Thank you. Next item, Northeast Drainage Easements. City Manager Jane Foltz.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I did ask Aaron Martin to sit in today, of course, to talk about the agreement that was reached with Highland Home, and I'll let him update that. And just as a reminder, we did approve this Northeast Drainage Plan on December the 9th. And the project was a funded owned position and maintained retention fund. The motion carried 4-2 on that December meeting.
I think we have a problem here. I'm hearing more a background voice, or there it went.
Yes.
Fine. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I was hearing the same thing, so please let me know if I generate any feedback. This is Aaron Martin, City Attorney, and you have before you 2 easements, a permanent drainage easement and a temporary construction easement in connection with the necessary acquisitions from Highland Homes LP, which is the owner of a majority of the land that we will be dealing with when the city constructs the northeast drainage improvements. As I mentioned at the study session, there are two owners from which we will need to acquire an easement. This is just one of those owners. The other owner is still reviewing the documents, but we hope to bring those before you soon so as to complete all the necessary acquisitions. But quickly, with respect to the permanent drainage easement, this is a perpetual easement for so long as the city wishes to maintain it, giving the city the necessary easement to construct and operate the drainage facilities and all appurtenant equipment. As Ms. Schultz mentioned, one feature of this easement is that the city is committing to maintain the easement area for so long as the city is using it, which would consist of mowing and vegetation control, things of that nature. Otherwise, it's a fairly straightforward permanent easement in favor of the city. The temporary construction easement is just that. It's a short duration easement that relates to Highland Homes property adjacent to the area where we will actually be constructing the drainage improvements, but that will allow the city to drive over and across Highland Homes property in the most convenient route, and also to store construction equipment and soil that is discarded from the actual easement area. The temporary construction easement is for a period of 18 months, should that amount of time be needed. So that is a high level overview of those two easements, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have on either of those. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Do I have any questions or comments in regards to the northeast drainage easement? Since this was approved prior, do we need to have an approval on this?
This is Aaron Martin, City Attorney. We anticipated an acceptance by the City Commission of this dedication of land to the city. The prior approval, I think, definitely anticipated this outcome. We view that as more of an approval of the project financing. And generally, our practice and policy has been anytime the city is acquiring a property interest to have a specific approval action for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Osterman, I move that we approve the northeast drainage easement as presented in our agenda.
Okay, do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Ryan, I'll second that.
It's been moved and second to approve the northeast drainage easement that has been presented by Attorney Mr. Martin. Do I have any further discussion? We will go to roll call vote. Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Witt?
Yes.
Mayor Osterman? Yes. And Commissioner Ryan?
Yes.
Has been so approved. Next item is consider a letter of commitment for New Horizon Hemp Processing, LLC. City Manager Jane Foltz.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Jane Foltz, City Manager. And after our meeting last week,
I think that Jeff and Tina were looking for a commitment from the city as they move forward with their project. And so I asked Aaron Martin, our city manager, to draft a commitment letter that says that the city feels this is a good project. Things work out very well for them, then we're willing to be part of the solution for their new business. So the letter has been put in your packet. You've had time to review it. If you have questions, Aaron Martin, our city attorney, is here to answer those.
Mr. Martin, this is Mayor Osterman. I was wondering, is there any, we had talked about this prior, about having a completion date or finalization date besides this May 1st, 2022, that they would have meet the requirements? Is that what this is saying?
Thank you, Mayor. This is Aaron Martin, City Attorney, and this is what I would call a preliminary commitment letter, so as to provide the developer with sufficient assurances to continue putting the package together. But it anticipates a short, I don't know if the word short is used, but what I would anticipate will be a short development agreement that more formally establishes the city's commitment and the commitment by the developer in return for that. And this particular letter anticipates that a development agreement will be entered into in the near future. And as part of that development agreement, it would certainly be appropriate, if the city wishes to do so, have a timeline for actually completing the project. All this does is put a final date approximately 2 years out, by which two things must have occurred. Evidence that the developer has sufficient financing to move forward, and evidence of a construction contract. And that before those two things occur, the city will not deed out the land to the developer. But once the land is deeded, if the city commission wishes to do so, it would be appropriate to have a general time frame for completion of construction. It is silent on that simply because we did not have direction on that issue yet. And I think that and a few other things will need to be discussed and possibly negotiated when we put the development agreement together. But this is just the first step towards that.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions or comments from the commissioners?
This is Commissioner Witt. Just wanted to double check and give Jeff and Tina a chance to talk. Just wanted to assure from you guys that this letter is what you're looking for and is going to be what you need to move forward.
Jeff Wilkins, New Horizons. Yeah, this is exactly what we are looking for. As far as what we are going to need, we've already, because of the meeting last week, we've taken the steps with the EDC and have gotten with the Kansas Department of Commerce and started our first initial filing with them to move forward with this. So I think that's all we need for them. I mean, to show that we're committed and that we have a spot. So, I mean, we're sure open for all the other discussions, you know, as this product or as this plays out. So, yes, I think that would be perfect. And I appreciate all the support that Tina and I both do. So, thank you. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free. We're here. So.
Thank you.
Mayor Osterman?
Yes.
This is Commissioner Marshall. Thank you, Jeff.
I move that we consider a letter of commitment for New Horizon hemp processing, and I wish them all the best.
I second the motion, Commissioner Witt.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consideration letter of commitment for the New Horizon Hemp Processing LLC. Do I have any further discussion? With that, we will take a roll call vote. Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Mayor Osterman, yes. Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
and Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you and the best of luck. We're looking forward to working with you, Mr. Wilkins. Thank you. Next item.
You're welcome.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank everybody again. That was it. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mayor. Sorry.
No problem, no problem. But thank you. And next item is the reopening plan. City Manager Jane Foltz.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Jane Foltz, City Manager, and as we get ready to reopen our doors and our business, more so than we have these last 8 weeks, I sent out a plan. I want to thank Kelly Timbrook, Interim Director of the Parks and Recreation Department. She's probably had the most hurdles as far as moving forward with summer plans and youth activities, those kind of things. But the good thing about the recreation field and parks field is we have a professional association that has been very good at getting everyone on board and putting a lot of great thinking into summer. And at this point, you can see with phase 1 to phase out, which is the phase idea that's coming from the state, talking with our local county health department. We put this plan together, and I will have it available for the newspaper. There was one entity that I really I lost track of it. I'll put it that way. The municipal band. And I did talk with Shelley Carroll, and our band has anywhere from 20 to 45 people, and they still, with this plan that's available here, we still have to have social distancing. We're still sanitizing. There's a lot of factors that go into this. And having a visit with Shelley, they're still going to have to practice and be 6 feet away from each other in the practice facility, as well as the band concerts as we move forward. So we talked about possibly modifying the number of people that play weekly in the band. They're going to have a late return. They probably won't return until after the 15th of June. They'll probably practice after the 1st, but only with the limited number of people, being 30, to get ready. So, and then they've got to sanitize all those things. But, even the pool and the ball diamonds, all those places are going to still have social distancing. They're still going to have sanitizing. We're going to do business. It's going to look a little different. We're still working that plan through, the details. But we don't want to cancel summer in Abilene, Kansas. So with that being said, all the facilities, departments, it looks like June 1, we're going to try to get the doors back open. We've ordered some materials in order to keep our employees safe, those that don't have a screen to divide our frontline people from the public. So we're working on that. The only piece of this plan does not include the Abilene Public Library. They have their own plan that they'll be rolling out after their board meeting. I believe it's tomorrow.
And so they'll be rolling out their own plan after their board meeting, with their board approving that. So, that being said, I think we have a good plan, but remember that this plan will change if they see an uptick in cases, and we're doing what we can to get back to our new normal, whatever that looks like. We haven't had a lot of issues with the doors being locked. People have really adapted well in this community. I think the number one thing on this list that I've heard positive comments about is the recycling center. We're going to get it opened May 19th, which is a Tuesday. And there's going to be some changes. You're going to stay in your car, you're going to pull up, your stuff will be in the back, pop your trunk or pop your hatch. There won't be any contact. We will be using limited resources out there as far as staff. And if you haven't been, I think it's on social media, the recycling center is completely empty, which hasn't happened since we built it. So Lon and the staff out there worked really hard to get ready for this influx, 2 months of recycling and building up in people's storage areas. I think we'll see a lot of people coming in. We're going to try to get our city commission meetings back to face by June 1. Not saying that's going to happen, but right now that's where we're at. We are all being very cautious. We do not want to see a resurgence of this COVID-19. So if you want to approve this plan to move forward and feel good about it, ask questions. We still have time to tweak it and make it better. But all the information that I used to put this together with staff came from the state, the county, and associations that we're closely entwined with since this COVID came about, and that's the Kansas Recreation Park Association, the Kansas Association of City Managers. We've been talking twice a week. We're not here to reinvent the wheel. We're here to do what's best for our public and keep our public and our employees safe. With that, I will listen to discussion.
Mayor Osterman, this is Commissioner Marshall. I have a comment for City Manager Foltz.
Yes.
The last I heard, neighboring communities were not opening their pools to the public this summer. Now, I know that would be increased in revenue for us if they all came over, but it's also a danger factor. How are we going to handle neighboring communities coming in and possibly infecting our community?
So we're still having that conversation. I know that Chapman, Solomon are opening their pools. The only ones that aren't are the aquatic centers. They just can't get those clean. Or it's going to be a nightmare not only to sanitize because they have so much area, but we're gonna do social distancing. There won't be as many lounge chairs on the decks. We're looking at vending for concessions instead of hiring people to handle money and food. We're doing some, our biggest concern is, do we have enough staff to even staff the pool? So again, right now, we're hoping for June 15th as an opening. We want to run our swimming lessons, which we can run 3 sessions of lessons. We're going to be at the number of 10, because that's what our recommendation is for swimming lessons. How do we keep people out? That's tough. We're a public pool. I don't know that we can really control that, but there will be rules and regs as far as social distancing. If you have a cough, you don't feel well. We're even looking at children not coming to the pool by themselves. They may have to come as a family unit. So it's going to look a little different. We're just not going to have the drop off and kids just come in and it's a free for all because of the search. They're talking about the number of kids hanging out together in a unit, whether it's your family unit or maybe it's your friend's unit, and those kind of things. Commissioner Marshall are still being worked out, but we really think it's it would be an advantage to have kids be able to come to the pool and give the kids a break and give the parents a break, just something different to do.
I understand the reasoning, I just don't know how you can practice social distancing when the pool's open to the public. I understand the swimming lessons and all that, that's great, but public swimming I'm kind of uncomfortable with.
Yeah. And we may look at, our hours being different. So we're still talking through that.
This is Mayor Osterman. Is there an occupancy for the pool limit?
Oh, yeah,
What is that?
definitely.
Do you
And it
know?
will be different because of social distancing.
Okay, all right.
So we're figuring through that. So, you know, it may, our average daily, depending on an 8-hour day, we were probably running 250 to 300 people, but they're not there all at the same time.
Okay.
And, yeah, it's not gonna be easy.
And also, I have another comment on the ball diamonds, and we had this conversation. I'm getting people commenting that they're not gonna play baseball, but we need to remind the public that is coming from private groups that are deciding, not the city itself, because the ball fields are open, so.
Correct. Yes, so we do have a number of entities that we work with, the Dickinson County Baseball League, we work with the Dickinson County Softball Association. Those are entities that run youth sports, baseball and softball. And so the Dickinson County Baseball League has decided not to do organized baseball, but they are going to run some camps and pickup games at no charge to those kids this summer. I believe the Softball Association is going to try to run some games in a league. We're looking at T-ball because our numbers are, you don't have more than 10 kids there and people can social distance along the fence lines. We're looking at possibly coach pitch and machine pitch. So those are all things that, as we progress through this, we will be making some decisions. And everybody has been very supportive of what we're trying to do. They get that we're trying to social distance, we're trying to be safe, and still provide some activities. The seasons will be shorter, but we're going to give parents and kids some opportunities to see their friends and blend without passing this disease on to each other.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Ryan. I have a question for Jane real quick, and with her background at the Parks Department, she may have pretty good insight on this. What's the, rough numbers, what's the net profit or loss from opening up a swimming pool every year?
So we don't make money on the swimming pool. The swimming pool is to property tax, our ad valorem, that's what else. We do that as a free service, and we make some money on our pool lessons, but overall, cost of chemicals, staffing, we look at it as an opportunity to give kids some jobs, keep them get them ready for the future. I don't look at those numbers, so please forgive me if I misquote, but, we could lose anywhere from $5,000 to $16,000 a year depending on the weather. Because we're open, people are coming, paying, we have season passes, we're discount tickets. We've always looked at it as a community service, more so than a profit-making opportunity for a city. And the recognition takes on the brunt of that, because they run the programs. The city, out of the general fund, usually commits about $20,000 towards the maintenance and general equipment repair and those kind of things for the school. And then the rec commission funding comes with staffing, programming, concessions, all those things, new deck chairs come through that avenue.
Okay, I guess what I was kind of, spitballing in my head was, this year with the restrictions, that's obviously going to bring your net loss up, as well as just the fear of parents letting their kids go to a pool with a lot of people around them. I guess my biggest concern is that, the loss is going to be grown quite a bit more. And if we do happen to have to look at furloughs of city workers, I think that would kind of appear as a slap in the face if that were to come to fruition. That was just my first thought on that.
Right.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Do I have any other comments by any of the other city commissioners at this time?
That's Commissioner Marshall again. Jane, I think what I hear you saying is this a tentative plan that could change? Thank you.
That's correct. As I said in the beginning, we're trying not to cancel summer, but I'm not promising anything.
I just want to
This
add,
is Commissioner Witt.
yes,
Thank you, Jane, for pulling this together. And I think it's good to have a set plan and direction, but all the while acknowledging that it will change and adapt as new information is gathered. So, but I'm personally excited to get the recycling center back and going because my garage is getting pretty full.
Mayor Osmond, this is
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall. I move that we approve the tentative reopen plan.
okay. Do I have a second?
This is Schaefer. I'll second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and second to approve this tentative reopening plan. Is there any further discussion? We will then go to roll call vote. Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Mayor Osterman, yes. Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
and Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
It has been so approved. Next item, consider ordinance 20-3386, an ordinance amending chapter 4 of the city code of the city of Abilene, Kansas by amending existing section 4-117 and adding a new section 4-124 to permit the keeping of chickens within the city of Abilene, Kansas. City Manager Jane Foltz.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Jane Foltz, City Manager. And this item came before you as, I believe Trevor Witt, Commissioner Witt, asked for this item to be discussed at a meeting. And he was willing to sponsor this. And I think there was a lot of good discussion at our study session since then. City Clerk Penny Sokup has received a number of comments, and I do believe many of you received phone calls as that's where they needed to come. It's to you. This is your decision, and I'll let City Attorney Aaron Martin share anything else legally that you may want to know as you move forward on your discussion.
Sure, thank you. This is Aaron Martin, City Attorney. I would be happy to walk through the ordinance. I know you all have seen it. I would note that the sample or draft presented by Commissioner Witt was very helpful and a template that I worked with staff on to preserve with some adjustments just to make it conform with the Abilene City Code and clarify a few issues. But generally, I think it's fair to say that it embodies the concept presented by Commissioner Witt, and we intentionally did not deviate from that. The two sections, section 4-117, presently that prohibits the owning of chickens within the city of Abilene. So the first thing this ordinance does is amends that section to allow it subject to the new permitting framework that we are establishing. Section 2 of the ordinance then establishes that framework. It of course contains definitions. We all know what a chicken is, but we went ahead and defined that and distinguish that from a rooster, which would be prohibited under this ordinance. Each person would be allowed 6 chickens in a residential zoning district. That number can go up depending on the acreage on the subject property. There's setback requirements that are generally consistent with the accessory use limitations under the zoning code. There's regulations related to the enclosures and sanitation. And then it speaks to the permitting process. There's a small annual fee of $25 to obtain the permit. The permitting framework, I would note, is not the type of framework where one applies and there's a great deal of discretion in terms of approving or denying. There's simply if the applicant can check the box that they have done A, B, and C, and D, or however many things they need to do, they are entitled to the permit generally. There is a limitation that if you've been convicted of an animal cruelty crime or anyone in your home has, you're not eligible for a permit. But beyond that, anybody who pays the fee and gets signed up could have up to 6 chickens, possibly more if they live on a large zoning lot. That permit is good for 1-year increments, and it can be renewed annually. If anybody is not complying with the ordinance in relation to number of chickens or sanitation, and they are caught doing that, there is a mechanism for the permit to be revoked. And then the final thing I would note would be that there is a process built in, so if anybody's permit is revoked or disapproved, the matter would then be brought before the governing body. If the permit holder or permit applicant wish to appeal it, they could come before the governing body and seek a different outcome. So that's a high-level summary of the ordinance, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Martin, this is Mayor Osterman, and my question is, the norm is not to have a ordinance created unless the city commission studies it first. So I feel like we're doing this backwards. So I'm not sure how you were told to proceed, because we were given the ordinance last week in the study session, and we should have had that without an ordinance, which this should have been brought to us as part of the study session without the ordinance. So can I ask how this was concluded with your information?
Sure. And I'm going off of memory here, but I believe Ms. Foltz reached out to me and asked me to take a look at the draft ordinance and prepare it or make any suggestions so as to be in a presentable format if the city commission wished to move forward. And I don't mean to suggest it wasn't in a presentable format. I simply mean from a legal perspective, tied into the city's codification system. So it was basically a matter of, as I often and always do, following the city commission, or following the city manager's direction to prepare this item for consideration. I can confirm that Commissioner Witt did not reach out to me directly and ask me to pursue this. That was not the case here. I have not had any direct communication with any commissioners on this subject, simply working with staff to get it in a format, and certainly apologize if I got ahead of anyone on that. But that's how it came to be that I was involved in this.
This is Mayor Osterman, and from what I understand, we were told at the study session, and tell me if I'm wrong, that Trevor was reached, the city reached out to Trevor for this, or that's what we were told at this last study session. So that's why I find it difficult to see an ordinance brought to us before there's actually any discussion.
And I'm probably not, this is Aaron Martin, I did not, I'm probably not the best person to speak to that. Again, I would just reiterate, I have not reached out to Commissioner Witt, or nor has he reached out to me. Simply just took the draft that I think was nearly identical to what you have before you in concept, but simply cleaning it up, so to speak, so as to make it consistent with the way that it would need to look if the city commission were interested in moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor
Yes.
Osterman, this is Jane Boldt, City Manager.
Yes.
And I'll just let you know, all of you, that when I received this request from Trevor Witt, I wanted to make sure that we were following procedure. I asked Aaron for his legal opinion. And I would say I had it put together so that you could see what it actually would say if this moved forward. I'm guessing, you weren't on board with that. Maybe I got the cart before the horse, but I felt like if you saw the ordinance and what it actually said, it might help with your decision making. So I'll take responsibility for that and learn from it going forward.
Thank you. And we've had struggles with this situation, not with the chickens, but situations of this happening before, and that's why we want to make sure it's easy for the other new city commissioners, and that would be Commissioner Ryan, to see how the process works and make sure it's done correctly so that we're all on the same page. And with that said, is there, and the other comment I need to make is that I'm not sure if you've gotten the information of what the city was presented. There was 17 yeses and 23 noes. My list, I've actually had people call me, and there were duplicates from calling into the city and to myself. So I have taken those off because that would actually be a duplicate. So do I have any further comments?
Mayor Osterman, this is Commissioner Marshall again, and I did the same thing as you. The city's outcome was 42.5% for chickens and 57.5% against. My own personal contacts, I did like you did. I took off the duplicates, and I had 72% against chickens and only 28% for. So if we're working for the citizens, they have vote. We need to just kind of put our personal things aside and listen to our citizens.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Ryan. If we want to speak to that, we can look at the numbers that were done in October of 2017. That was that 72.5% of Abilene citizens were in favor of allowing their neighbors to raise chickens, while 24.4% were not in favor. And I would add that is a much larger chunk of the city, as it was 355 people that's in the forum. So if we want to call that into question, I think we can call those numbers into question as well.
And thank you, Commissioner Ryan. This is Mayor Osterman, and I will speak to that. I was actually the sponsoring city commissioner for this when it was in the process. That said person asked me to support it. And the reason I did that was so that I could see a true picture of what was going to happen. Well, what happened was when this forum came out, it came out in two clusters. One where that person wanting it sponsorship lived, and the second one was where that same person worked. So the numbers were not reliable, because I felt that anyone can go and advocate for it, and it was really relevant in this percentages that it was that person's work and that person's home area where it showed that they all wanted it. So it wasn't a true representation, and that's why I didn't support it, because I saw how the numbers could be easily changed. And I didn't comment on that, because when it came through on our last vote, it was a no. And I did not have to reply to that, but that's actually what happened. So just to update everyone on that information, I was blindsided by it. I thought, oh, this will be a true picture. And actually it wasn't a true picture. It was really heavily numbered by two factors: the work area where this person worked and where this other person, where the same person lived. So with that said, I also had 63% no and 37% yes for my people that have called me.
Mayor Osterman, this is Commissioner Witt. To get a little bit more detailed on your feedback, I remember from our study session you had mentioned that the sample may have been skewed to a certain part of town. So I went through the responses, and it was odd how they were quantified in that there was the location was sectioned in parts of town, certain quadrants, and then there was also the option to not give feedback on what location of town that was in. So I went in and I mapped those responses on a map of Abilene, and it is evenly distributed throughout town, but only for those that responded to that location. A large majority did not provide a location. Almost a little over 50 of the people in the response didn't indicate any location to town. And so I think there was one portion of town that was the majority was not in favor, and that was the Bicentennial Park area, and that was a 2-to-1 look. But all the other zones of town, how they were played out in that survey, all of them had a majority in favor. And so I'm not sure exactly how you're reading through that information and seeing that there was only a specific part of town that was for it.
Thank you, Commissioner Witt. What I was saying was it was heavily voted in certain areas, and certain areas weren't voted on. It didn't have a high vote in certain areas. My feeling is that I agree with the letter in the newspaper this last week that we cannot make a decision on this by yay or yes or no, just getting a vote from different people, because it can be misconstrued. If we're going to do this, we're going to have a vote by the public on a regular vote, and let them make the decision, because that's only the fair way to do it. He said, she said, just doesn't quantify a vote that would be reasonable. So that's why we need to consider that instead of going to allow this ordinance. It's just not a reasonable conclusion.
Mayor Osterman, this is Commissioner Marshall. There's some merit to what you're saying. Anybody can get a petition around and get people to vote for them. maybe something like this should be in a more public forum where everybody can come and voice their concerns. Because not all of them are being addressed. It's been brought up to me that the disease they carry, the salmonella, the avian flu, the E. coli, the lice, and as Mr. Royer said, the increase of varmints in the city limits. It's a passing fad right now. Everybody thinks they want chickens, but what happens when the fad passes?
Thank you, Commissioner. Go ahead.
This is Commissioner Witt. A little bit more thought around some of the feedback that we had received. What I was really hoping for, and one thing first to point out is it's nice to have public involvement in these discussions. I think with the fact that we're in a digital format, we've definitely received more feedback on this than we would have had in an in-person meeting. The fact that we can gather those public comments through a digital means, people are definitely more apt to respond digitally than they are to show up to a meeting in person. And so that's good to hear all this different feedback. But what was missing, I think, in the comments for and opposed, were the details around this specific ordinance. And I did quite a bit of research into the other cities and around us that are comparable in size and demographics, and kind of pulled the best pieces of all their code into what we have before us. And what that is an attempt to not only represent the side that would like to have chickens, but also an attempt to respect those that are fearful or concerned about some of the negative effects. And we see that addressed when it comes to predators. These chickens need to be in predator-proof cages. When it comes to the smell, which is a recurring concern that I've heard, these coops need to be cleaned out once a week. When it comes to the effective staff time, there's a $25 annual fee to be able to do this. And if you're found not in compliance of it, it's up to a $500 fee per violation. And with all that, I didn't make that searching in a vacuum. I actually reached out to some of the different cities to see what have been their issues, if they've had any. Was actually able to get a hold of McPherson, and they have a much less restrictive code than we have. They can actually keep horses in McPherson, which is surprising, and they don't have a permitting process. And they said, they get a few complaints every year regarding chickens. The most comparable would be Wamego. They have a very similar permitting and application process, and that seems to weed out the people that aren't committed to doing this responsibly. And they said they don't receive any complaints, and they've had their code effective since 2015. And so that's where I think in this, the people that are concerned may not be thinking of exactly how their concerns are addressed by the specific code. And that's what it's attempting to do, is to be able to represent the voice of the people that want it, and then also address the concerns of the people that may be against. So,
Mayor Osterman, I'd like to speak to that.
Yes.
Mr. Webb just said that this was the best format. We got more input than we would otherwise. I know he wants chickens, but this survey says they do not want chickens. So how could we vote for ourselves and not our citizens if this is the best format to collect votes?
And this is Mayor Osterman. I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Marshall, because the public contacted the city and said they do not want chickens by a 57.5%. Yes was 42.25. And I also want to remark that I've talked to someone that has chickens in a rural area, and the chicken coops that people buy locally, like from the supply places, those do not hold up. They will fall down easily. They do not protect like they should. They're not a product that would sustain itself if any, like foxes or whatever. They're just not, they're not sturdy. So I was also told that. So I agree with Commissioner Marshall. The public has said no, they do not want it because they have reported to the city, and we took that. We have to take that with a grain of salt.
Mayor Osterman, this is Commissioner Marshall again. I agree with you. We just cannot have a personal agenda override what the citizens have said.
This is Commissioner Ryan. I think I'm just going to repeat myself again. Back in October of 2018, it was stated that 72.5% were in favor of allowing their neighbors to raise chickens, while 24.4% were not in favor. I don't understand how we can take these new numbers that have come up this last week and compare them to an actual forum that was held that showed that 72.5% were in favor of allowing their neighbors to raise chickens. If we're going to discount this, I think these new numbers that we've come up with in the last week should be even more heavily discounted.
This is Commissioner Marshall again. That was 2018. It was not approved then. This is 2020. We don't use old data. We have to go on what citizens want at this time.
This is Commissioner Ryan again. I guess just to back up a little bit, personally, I have no dog in the fight. I have no interest in owning raising chickens in my backyard. Quite frankly, it doesn't interest me at all. But it was very apparent some of the comments that were coming in that most of the people had, especially the ones that had raised concerns, it was very obvious that they had never actually read the ordinance, because a lot of their concerns were addressed in the ordinance. And nearly all the comments that were against this ordinance were based on emotion and not fact. And personally, I choose to govern based on facts, not emotion. And to me, this ordinance poses no apparent risk to the citizens of Abilene. In that case, I will always be in support of personal property rights and personal liberty for the homeowners here. That's my piece on it.
This is Commissioner Marshall again. I agree with you. I guarantee you, though, none of my renters will be allowed chickens. I grew up in a community that allowed chickens. I know firsthand the problems that come with chickens. They're barnyard animals. Dogs and cats, that's another thing. I don't allow those either.
I thank you for the comments. This is Mayor Osterman. First of all, we're in a crisis mode and we are talking about chickens. I had a comment from someone that said, why in the world are we talking and continuing with this? This should be the least of our worries. But that said, I would like to table this where it can be in a setting where we can actually have people come up and comment. I think that's only the reasonable thing to do, because we're not getting anywhere. We're just continuing he said, she said, and that's not a way to continue this process. So with that said, I would like to make a motion to table this until we can actually get in a setting where we're in a commission meeting where people are able to make comments on their own.
Mayor Osterman, this is Commissioner Marshall again. I would second your motion. We're just spinning our wheels here, rehashing. It obviously needs to be studied some more and get more public comment. If Commissioner Ryan and Commissioner Witt don't feel those votes are fair, let's do it all over again.
Okay, it's been moved and second to table this until we have a regular setting at a city commissioner meeting. Any further discussion?
This is Commissioner Witt. I'm curious, what extra information do you think we would receive by having this in an in-person commission meeting? And this question is directed to Mayor Osterman.
Well, first of all, you have people that have made a point to either call or email here to the city offices their votes. Now we're dismissing what was done. Now we're saying that we should not take the votes that are now currently, but take it from what it was previously. And I don't think that's fair to the community to take old information. Here we have new information, and it just seems like we're continuing to go back and forth on that. So that's why.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Witt. One thing I'd like to say with regard to our structure of governance, which is representative form, and it seems like the feedback we've currently gotten is 60-40 or something like that. So I think that's representative right now, and the current opinions that we've heard, in my opinion, Commissioner Ryan, Mayor Osterman, and Commissioner Marshall, I think that those opinions are represented on this commission. Who we haven't heard from is Commissioner Schaefer and what he has to think. So I don't see a reason right now to table this, because I do not think it's going to change the votes of the opinions of the people on the commission. And we are pretty representative of our population as we stand right now.
And Commissioner Witt, thank you, but I also have some questions that I want to ask in a regular setting for city staff and city commissioners. I want everything out in the open, and I cannot do this through this net meeting. So I would rather do it in a professional setting where I can ask my direct questions. So that's one of the reasons that I want to table this. I want to ask certain questions to city staff, and I can't do that currently. So, and Commissioner Schaefer, would you like to make a response?
I had contact, telephone calls, and personal contact with 4 people about this. It was 75% in favor.
Okay. So you had 4, is that correct? Is that what you said? Commissioner Schaefer, 4?
Yes.
Okay. And Commissioner Ryan, did you have a percentage of contacts?
I did not calculate them into percentages. I will say that the vast majority, I shouldn't say vast majority, but a lot of the emails that were sent to the city were negative, but according to mine, let me do some quick math here. I had 14 yeses. These are just people that contacted me personally. 14 yeses and 7 no's.
Okay.
I had 29 contacts, this Commissioner Marshall, by phone call, by personal email, by people coming up to me when I was asked. And mine was 72% no and 28% yes. But to what Commissioner Witt said, if we are going to use this media and accept the information that was given to us, we have to accept the information that we all received through the city, which says 57.5% of the voters do not want chickens. Maybe this is something we can address at a later time, but at this time, people don't want chickens.
Do I have any, and this is Mayor Osterman, and I really do feel that we need to be in an official setting where we are sitting, allowing people to come and make comments. Also, I wanted to question city staff on a few items, and I can't do that here. So I think we need to have all the information we can to make a correct decision. And with having this type of city commission meeting where we are meeting by phone and networking doesn't suffice for a decision to be made. So I'm going to go to vote. Anybody else have any further discussion?
This is Commissioner Witt, and I'm in a stance right now that if you think that an in-person meeting would give you extra information to have a better approach to whether or not we adopt this, I would be for that if it's on the very first meeting where we can have the public come in and give their comment, because I really don't want to be kicking this down the road just because we want to avoid making a vote on it. I want to be intentional when we make it, and I want the comments to be informed. That's really what I felt was missing from this discussion was informed comments that were seeing the perspective of both sides and really understanding what that ordinance is proposing, and also seeing it's not something that's new and outlandish. It's something that many communities around us do and don't have a problem with, and so maybe there just needs to be more education around that. So those are the rest of my comments.
Thank you.
I would also, Commissioner Marshall again, I would also ask that address to be provided with people, unless we do this in person, and even then, their address provided, because a lot of the stuff I saw floating around on Facebook were, any live in the city limits.
That's a good
Jake
point.
Gold, City Manager.
Yes.
And I guess, Merrill, I would only ask, who's not at the table that you would like to request, just so I could see that they were there.
City Manager Foltz, you're breaking up. I didn't hear your last couple sentences.
Mayor Osterman,
Yes.
I'm asking, who else would you like at the table from city staff, so I can make sure that they're there?
The new Travis, I would like number one, who's the city inspector, and then just a minute, I have his name. It's the new Director of Development,
Clinton.
Okay.
Clinton.
Great.
Yes, thank you.
This is Commissioner Ryan. I have a question for Mayor Osterman.
Yes.
This was going to be a sticking point as to why you would like to table this discussion. Why did you not contact the city manager and ask that they specifically be on this call?
Because I was, this is Mayor Osterman, because I was trying to figure out why this was being presented, not why it was, first of all, this was not handled correctly. We had an ordinance applied to us at a study session where we've had no discussion prior, and that's not the way it works. So I had to hear from who, actually from the city attorney, what actually transpired. And then I got some other information. So I was actually waiting for a response from why was this presented to us, and if it's so, why was it done this way? You have to understand, Commissioner Ryan, we had a previous manager that this has happened, and that's how things were worked, and this is not the way it works in city government. We're supposed to have a study session, not an ordinance, in front of us on an issue, and to have the ordinance already up and running doesn't add up to me. So that's why.
This is Commissioner Ryan, but I guess I don't see a fault in having more information at that study session. We could have chosen not to move forward with it at that point. We had the opportunity to amend the ordinance. It wasn't an ordinance that we were voting on to bring to a vote at that point. It with it, we can change it. But I guess for me, it is more helpful to have an actual framework that we can look at so we know kind of what we're getting into. Personally, I think more information is better, and the earlier we can get that information, the better it is in my eyes.
Well, thank you, but Commissioner Ryan, we paid an attorney to create an ordinance written that we never even agreed on. So if we were going to do any changes on that ordinance, or if we had agreed to it and moved forward with certain items that would have had to be included, the ordinance was already written up, and we've already gotten charged by the attorney to have that ordinance written up.
Mayor Osterman, this is
Yes.
Commissioner Witt. Sorry, I said I was done commenting, but to give you some full clarity on how this all played out, I was remembering the 2018 discussion, and the way that went was there wasn't a commissioner who was willing to sponsor, and so I did some research. I built out an outline of some of the best framework from the surrounding communities, and I gave that to our city manager. And I said, I'd like to discuss this at a study session. And so that is the order in which it played out from my end of things. It was me taking my time to do the research and see what may work best, and then presented that outline to our city manager to bring it to a study session to do exactly what you're discussing is bring a discussion topic in front of us to be able to read it, make changes to it, decide whether or not we want to move forward with it. Definitely not a thing that is effective yet, but instead a draft that hopefully proves to make discussion more fruitful. So.
And thank you, Commissioner Witt, but now I'm confused because at the study session, it was pointed out that the city manager reached out to you to sponsor this. So that's why, that was last Monday. So that's why I'm totally confused on what actually transpired. And it's confusing because last week it was said that the city manager reached out to you for sponsorship. So,
Mayor Osterman, this is Commissioner Witt. That was not the case. It was initiated by me. So Jane did not reach out to me to sponsor this.
But do you understand why I'm confused? Because that's what was said last week. I wrote it down. That's why I wanted to make sure I knew how it was being created, and because it was awkward that the ordinance was there. So if I have no more comments, I'd like to get a vote for tabling that item. Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
No.
Commissioner Witt.
No.
Commissioner Ryan.
No.
And Mayor Osterman, yes. It has not been approved. It failed.
Mayor Osterman.
Mayor Osterman?
Yes.
I'm sorry. This is Commissioner Marshall again. Obviously, we're ready to go for a vote on this, but I would just like to say if we're going to bring our own personal agendas to this, we need to be careful how we do this. I mean, there's nothing stopping me from bringing this back up if it passes, saying, I don't want chickens, and going out and doing my own legwork and getting all the questions answered that Commissioner Ryan and Witt want. We just have to watch how we handle ourselves.
Thank you, Commissioner Marshall. I just want to remind everyone that then if we didn't feel last week that those people calling in or emailing to the city their vote, we should have said, no, we're going to use the past form is what we're going to agree to, but we never said that. And that's why it's disturbing that we are going on back information instead of using the current information that we asked for. So we've actually wasted the residents of Abilene, Kansas time, because they have said no, and they've contacted the city. If you're not going to honor that and go back to a prior information, then that's not the way to do it.
This is Commissioner Ryan. Personally, I have no personal feeling. I have no interest in owning chickens. I just think it's the property owner's right to do what they see fit on that property if it follows certain guidelines. And quite frankly, to that point about using old information, then why in October of 2018, when we had this overwhelming number at this forum show that they were in favor of this, why did you table it then? I think any more information we get, we're gonna go through this every time, and it's gonna be moved to table.
Thank you,
Commissioner Marshall, again, we did not table, we voted on it, it did not pass. And I agree with the mayor, we should not go on old information. Like she said, the citizens have spoken, it's 2020, things change, this is 2020.
And to move, this is Mayor Osterman, and to move forward, if we're going to ask for these people's votes, then we need to be honest and upfront with them at the time we were requesting their votes, instead of negating what they have asked us, what they have supplied us for. That's not fair to the public.
Commissioner Schaefer, Mayor Osterman.
Yes.
I move that we approve this amendment to the city code allowing laying hens.
Mayor Osterman, I will second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and second to approve the ordinance on chickens. Any further discussion?
Mayor Osterman, this is Commissioner Witt. For full detail and the explanation of my vote is I'm choosing to represent the portion of the population that responded to our current information, and they are desiring that this be a part of our city code. And to address the comments that were against, I believe this city code is sufficient at addressing those concerns of what the people have commented. And then quick note, and specificity of language, we didn't ask for people's votes, we asked for their comments, and we received those, and I factored those into my vote, which we're soon to have.
Okay.
Commissioner Marshall, if you're paying attention to the current people, why are you voting for it?
This is Commissioner Witt. The 47% of the people that are for it. So as a representative form of government, I'm choosing to represent that portion.
Commissioner Witt.
Actually, 42%.
42%, yeah.
Commissioner Schaefer, Mayor Osterman.
Yes.
And I'm responding like Commissioner Witt. Of the 4 people that contacted me, 3 said they wanted chickens. So it's pretty easy to send an email, but it's another thing to actually reach out to somebody.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to roll call vote. Commissioner Witt.
Yeah.
Mary Osterman, no. Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
No, with the qualification, I will bring my own personal agenda to get this outlook.
And Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Okay. It has been so approved. Next item is city reports. City Manager Foltz.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Jane Holt, City Manager. First of all, I want to thank the county for the help while flying a drone over the airport debris field and then overlaying the property lines so that we can see the scope of the damage. This helped with the cleanup, which happened rather quickly, so that the crops could continue to grow. All planes have been removed from the damaged hangar. We're waiting on a report from our insurance adjuster to find out the damage found throughout the city. Lon Schrader has been working with the adjuster to move this along. Lon will be putting together a scope of work for demolition of the T-hangars and what's left of them, and then we will get a rebuilding plan for construction put together for the future. Mike Ragsdale will be working with code enforcement as well as regular duties as community service officer, which will assist with the inspection department a great deal. We have had an interest in the early retirement option that you all approved on April 27th, 2020. And just as a reminder, local and area contractors, our code states off-premise advertising is not allowed in residential areas. Signs may not be put up in citizens' yard until the work begins on projects, and this has to do with the storm last week with the roofers coming in. So signs have been picked up by our inspection department, and contractors may decide to pick up those signs from City Hall as we are collecting those. Then just to give you an update on the City Commission study session for May 18th, you will be hearing from our Finance Director, Marcus Rothschild, on several issues, including the Utility Operations Water and Sewer Fund, our Special Revenue Operations from the Alcohol and Drug Fund, and preparation for the 2021 budget. We also will be reviewing the proposed CIP plan for 2021. Barney and Associates will be present to line our 2019 audit. The Public Works Director, Lon Schrader, will be present for the city maintenance plan criteria. And we are also waiting to hear back from the Rural Water District on their response concerning the rate increase. They do have a meeting, I believe, scheduled. They usually meet the second Tuesday of the month, which is tomorrow. So we're hoping that we get some answers from them, and we'll wait to hear from our city attorney, Aaron Martin, on those types of things. So we are right in the middle of 2021 budget preparation, so your study sessions will begin to be filled with that information. And just to assure you, going forward, we are looking and continue to look at the 2020 budget and the effects of COVID-19. And so, this staff is working very hard. These department heads are making sacrifices where they need to be made, and we are moving forward. Thank you.
Consider a motion to adjourn the May 11th, 2020 City Commission meeting.
Commissioner Marshall, so moved.
Commissioner Witt, I second the motion.
It's been moved and second to adjourn the May 11th, 2020 City Commission meeting. Roll call vote. Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Mayor Osterman. Yes. So adjourned.